Ngozi, welcome to the Power Within You podcast. It's so wonderful and lovely to have you here with me today. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's a bit cold, a little bit chilly.
S- Listen, man, I went to the gym this morning and the car was frozen. Like I didn't understand what was going on. Like, and I've got hay fever at the same time, so I'm sneezing and I'm also chilly. Doesn't make any
Imagine in
sense.
April you got hay fever and you've got a frozen window. How is that making sense? What
It's
is
just all
going
upside
on,
down.
Mother Nature? Like, get it right. Get your act
I
together.
know.
Get it right.
You know what? This is the reason sometimes we used to talk, do the podcast, get things right in our heads, think about what process stuff. But I'm just so happy to have you here and to speak about your experience and your journey as well. And before we get into like, your amazing, inspiring businesses that you're currently doing, I'd love to kind of like get into, your history, your journey on mental health yourself and what led you to become, what you're doing now as a therapist and helping leaders as well.
That's such a good question, and I think every time I'm asked this, I answer it very differently because each person brings out a different dimension.
True, true.
I think that I've been reflecting a lot on being the underdog of recent, and I think that one of the things I always say is that I was severely bullied growing up for quite a while, up until I was in year eight. So that might have been potentially age 12, just before I was 13, I think.
Mm,
Um, and there was a key turning point in, well, that must have been 2003, or yeah, to go 2003 to
mm,
2004, key turning point of kind of like, no, that typical thing of saying no to the bullies. And it was just like, I am
mm,
tired of just being bullied consistently for a long time. I was just kind of tired of taking it really. 'Cause I just took it, and I guess when you're
mm,
being bullied, you're on the receiving end, you're just taking it. So it felt like somebody's foot that was on my neck. I said, yeah, you're either gonna break the neck or I'm gonna break your own leg. So yeah, I think I broke the person's leg in,
mm,
not literally, but in terms of this kind of, I call it an emancipation. Um,
mm,
and I think, but though that happened and though that was amazing and that was freeing, I was definitely suffering internally and just depressed because the years of bullying has then created an image that I believed. I believed
mm,
all of the lies that I was told. And even though I had this enigmatic personality, and I still do have that, that
mm,
essentially probably was one of the key reasons why no one could really see that I was suffering inside. And also, I didn't let people in. So there was that part I didn't
mm,
let people in. I didn't know how to. I didn't know 'cause when I did tell people things, both loved ones,
mm,
both friends and family, people didn't handle it. So
mm,
I learn, and you will learn. That's what happens to a lot of young people when they tell their parents or they tell somebody. They shut down
mm,
because you get the message of it's not safe or it's not handled or nobody's going to do anything. Nobody cares. So there was this kind of, I didn't think anybody cared, and even if people did care, if I tell you, you might disappoint me, and when I tell you, or it might be seen as silly and
mm,
stupid. And also, how do I explain years of self-hate? How do I tell you that I hate myself? I hate living and be existing, but I am just existing. I didn't even know really how to end my life at that age, so I just didn't know how to end it. If I did know how to end it, thank God, I may not be here.
mm,
Um, so but even though that was occurring, I do like to say this and preface this because I want people to hear that when you are experiencing depression, and everyone's different, it's not everything.
mm,
There is moments of joy, and there are good times, and there are amazing memories. So even though secondary school was a very hard period of my life, it was also the most fun. It was just like the
mm,
amount of jokes and laughs. So it
mm,
wasn't all doom and gloom. And to be
mm,
honest with you, after the bullying, externally it wasn't that bad. It was more internal. So it was my internal world that was just
mm,
really bad. My external world was quite good. I was, popular now. No one could mess with me. I was a happy person. I made people happy. But when I went
mm,
home, I wasn't happy. Or it would fluctuate.
mm,
I wasn't always unhappy 100%, but a lot of times, I would say 60 to 40%, I was more unhappy than happy. And that kind of just oscillated, till my later teenage years, and college years. And it was very weird because, again, nobody would see it. Only people that would see it would be people that don't know me. So maybe like a random teacher says, "You just look sad." Look sad, but they wouldn't do anything. So what was
mm,
really interesting is that they would notice that, and maybe I dismissed them. I
mhm,
can't remember. Maybe I said no, 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 but it never went further. There was never let me talk to you, Ngozi, and let's see what's going on. Do you need help and support? So there was something that I was also given up, and I do think there is talk in the whole black woman
Mm,
adultified and whatnot seen, because that may have been playing a part, because nobody ever saw my vulnerability, or if they did, they didn't go further
mm,
with how to support and help me. So I was kind of left to my own
absolutely.
devices, which is quite dangerous. That's why I'm very thankful that I didn't have the knowledge that a lot of young kids had now. The most I did was self harm, but I could have done a lot more
Mm,
dangerous stuff if I knew about it, or met somebody who introduced me to, like, suicide pacts, or etc. etc. One of my closest friends, who we're
mm,
friends now, she was
mm,
very suicidal, and we said that if we were that best friends and we separated, and I think that that was a key reason why if we didn't separate, we both may not be here, because she actually went into suicidal pacts with somebody, and then the way I'm an executor, I'm an implementer. I would have actually
mm.
implemented it rather than just talk
Yeah.
and discuss it. So it now makes sense why our friendship kind of became distant, because we were both
Mm,
highly depressed and highly suicidal, and that would have been a very volatile relationship. So I'm really glad that God protected us in that way. But I just see all these different
mm,
instances in my life where I could have gone a different direction, and divine intervention and just so many different things kind of stopped me from going down that route. So although it might sound, your audience might say, "Oh my God, it was really sad," I also want to say that there was a lot of love and care. My mum was amazing, and parents that
mm,
have children with mental health difficulties, sometimes you can do everything you can and your child still
mm,
struggles. So it's just really important that, you know, parents don't feel like they've done something wrong. Mum didn't do anything wrong. I unfortunately was
mm.
born in a circumstance. I didn't have a dad. I was bullied, and she couldn't. Well, she tried to do, and she tried to do, and what she did didn't always make it better, because when she would get angry at the teachers would take it out on me. So there was just such a number of
Oh, really? Oh my
factors
goodness.
being an unstable. And I don't mean they would bully me, but they just wouldn't help me, or they would get irritated at me, or I could just see, like, I would answer questions and they wouldn't. They would, like, I remember I loved RE, and I'm like the only one that participated in RE. So I would put my hand up like, "Miss, I know the question, yeah." The one subject that I actually listened in, and she literally would be like this. Anybody else,
It's
because
like a
her
comedy sketch,
mum.
no? A racist comedy sketch, probably.
Yeah, just like anybody else. And it's like, "Miss." And when someone's like, "Okay, fine, you answer the question,
Awful.
yeah? You answer the question." But that was because my mum and her had an argument on Parents' Eve. I don't know what, I can't remember it now. Um, and then she treated me differently in the class. So it was things like that that occurred that made me realize that
Mm,
I can't tell my mum, because she would do what a lot of mums do. She'll come in and beat anybody up. But some of the teachers were young, they were like in their 20s, and maybe they didn't have enough emotional regulation to not take it out on
it's
the
true.
child because you're getting cussed out by a parent.
It's so true. You know what? I can so relate to everything you're saying. I was also bullied in secondary school. And it's you. We don't know. I mean, really realizing we don't realize the impacts it has on us until we're adults. Sometimes, right? As well. And my mum, being an Indian woman, is fiercely protective, but we didn't have an emotional culture to talk about this stuff as well. So it kind of sits inside and eats you up, doesn't it? And it gets worse and worse and worse, and then it starts manifesting in different ways. Like you said, like for you, is to the extreme where you felt suicidal and depressed. And that's really heartbreaking to hear. And mum is trying to do the best, like I said. But teacher, I appreciate you getting cussed out, right? And then they're going to take it out on you because they're like just don't know what to do with it and stuff. But like it's true, and it's so wonderful to see you, to hear you, but you're able to like also laugh about it too, as well as talk about it seriously, as well, and kind of like be able to, and that's what is already just a few minutes into it, like I can relate to you, and I think everyone out there and all the listeners out there can relate to you too, which is incredible. So from like that point onwards, when you I can't imagine how difficult it was for you. Did it get better at any point, like during those years, or?
um, how I describe my depression, I call it high function
Mm,
depressed, because I was, it didn't affect me in a sense where I wasn't eating, or I wasn't sleeping, or I
right.
wasn't self hygiene and stuff like that. I didn't have they call it negative symptoms of depression. Um, uh,
Mm,
But so, and again, I was the life of the party. A lot of my friends, they all my friends know, but a lot of my friends that knew me then, when I first told them, they were shocked because I was the person that was the life of the party, and it wasn't like I was even in a way of
Mm,
masking it. I was just, I've got that personality. I've been created in a very interesting way with the. That's what was really interesting. The dichotomy between my depression and my personality, because even
mm,
now through therapy, I still have the kind of core personality. I'm a laugher, I'm a jokester, I'm very extroverted.
mm.
But I have what we call it a schizoid process, meaning that I am very private as well, internally.
Sure.
But the difference between years before therapy now is that I was private from a place of I'm scared to share, where I'm just private now because I am, I'm able to self-regulate, and I share with when I'm in
Mm,
a safe environment. So it wasn't all bad. So, but in terms of my mindset, it oscillated. I didn't sit.
mm,
That for me, my depression wasn't I'm always in a dark room. It was when I was by myself in those certain moments I felt bad. But I enjoyed life, like any other
mm.
teenager, and that's what I think. The complexity of a lot of mental illnesses is not just if you're
Yes.
schizophrenic, I'm just hearing a voice every minute of the day. The voice comes and goes. There's moments where
Yes.
you're lucid and you're not hearing anything, and you're just hearing the TV. I'm not hearing, but then there's moments where somebody will hear another voice that comes either it feels internally or externally. It's the same, I guess, with depression. It's not every minute I'm sad and I'm breaking inside. Sometimes I'm busting jokes,
Mm,
having fun, life. I'm planning for the future, but there's other moments where I can't see anything other than my self hate. So
mm,
things were better in sense that it wasn't all bad. So there were things that were good and were okay, and life in general had goods and ups and downs. But in terms of how I felt, the self hate did last a very, very long time. It's taken a very long time to unravel that self hate.
mm,
And integrate myself. So my personality kind of remains the same, but I feel more integrated and whole. Where I felt quite disconnected about 10 years ago. So whereas my personality is there, but I'm also quite hollow,
mm,
where I no longer feel hollow, but yeah, I
mm,
still go through those ups and downs and sad days, and you know, uh, being the way I am and being whole and being happy is discipline, because I can easily get into a
mm,
negative train of thought, and maybe in a week's time, I'm in a very dark, dark space. And a lot
mm,
of it is just, ensuring how I think, and if something negative occurs, seeing it for what it is and not interpreting it as in because that's negative, I must be bad. Because that's one thing that I used to do, and a lot of people with depression hear that, you know, it's not even like feedback. It could be like you're doing something really, really well, but something goes wrong in that. There's several of you, but I would interpret that as I am bad rather than this thing happened that weren't good. So that took a long time to also work through that. Things that happen around me, good or bad, isn't always to do with me. It just happens.
absolutely, absolutely. So well said. Because that's why I think mental health is so difficult to treat. Like it's so nuanced.
Nuance.
Depression, anxiety.
Yeah.
It's just like it's just. And I know we're underfunded, so it's even harder for people to do research on it. And if someone does one study and they think they found the answers, but actually, like it's so complex. And I think we're only realizing that now because before, back in the day, people would be hiding their depression under the carpet, especially come from Indian culture, sure, definitely, and it was just hidden under the carpet, and you don't speak about these things, and it's just hidden away, and so people don't go get for help, and they just get worse. And I think from ethnic minority communities, it is difficult, no, to talk about mental health because there is a stigma to it still. I think it's getting better, but have you seen that, occur when you were trying to get your own help, perhaps?
Um, yeah, I think that. So what's funny is I got help because I went to become a therapist, and my therapy, but not all,
Mm,
but most psychotherapy programs you have to have therapy. So
yes,
technically,
yes.
without maybe that's part of the reason why I have to do therapy. Wow, actually, just thought about it. I didn't. I just realized that I don't think I would have. I may not have sought therapy if not for for my psychotherapy program, because in a very weird way, I wasn't aware that I thought it was normal. And then when I realized I was depressed, it was just
Yeah,
I'm depressed.
yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
like I'm depressed. Oh my god! Like it was I'm depressed. Yeah, I'm depressed. Like yeah, it was just like yeah, I'm depressed. It was kind of like you're depressed. Yeah, I'm depressed. That was it. It wasn't like I'm depressed. Go to the GP. To be said to say that as well. I didn't have a good relationship with my GP at the time. my GP, I found him now, but that's my old GP. But that GP grew, and there's other GPs. But at the time, I only saw him.
Mm,
Before I saw him, it was his dad. He
mm,
was so lovely and so sweet, but he was rude. And just to give an example of what I mean was, I went for a cold one day, and because I found him very difficult. One time I went with my mum. I was an adult, so I'm not, in his mind, it was like, why is an adult coming with their mum? But because he really scared me. And he literally told my mum to shut up and why didn't she speak? Like, me speak. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm only coming to tell you you've got a cold. And then I think one time I came by myself and he literally just said to me, oh, you used to get bullied, didn't it? Like, no, he didn't say in it, but he was just like, you used to get bullied. Oh, you done really well for yourself. You're a social worker. Well done. So condescending. And that's an example of why, even if someone said
yeah.
go to your GP, I wouldn't have, because I couldn't go to him. And it was only, I think, randomly I called, and the first time I said, they said, "Oh, do you want to see a female GP?" I said, "What? I could see another GP. Yes, please. I never want to see him again." And since I left that GP, I moved areas. I made sure I never saw the main guy, because that was my main reason why I would never. And even to this day, GPs scare me because of that horrible
Mm,
experience of how he was. Because he was just so kind. He literally went into my records and went, "Oh, you used to get bullied," and he told me that, "Oh, you went." I forgot I went to have psychology. He said, "Yeah, you got psychology." And I was like, "Did I?" He was like, "Yeah, I'm seeing it
mm,
right." And I'm like, wow.
mm,
Like, yeah, your mum asked for psychology, and it was just the way he was saying it, and I was trying to hold back tears. So
mm,
when I think about seeking help, that's an individual experience. I know some people from ethnic
mm.
communities have more racial experiences.
True, true.
So I couldn't say mine was racial in that sense, but he was just not nice. So it made
Mm,
health unsafe anyways for me. So I wouldn't have considered seeking help because of my experiences with the health, and that was the only experience I had with health. So fortunately, I say fortuitively, because I was seeking to be a therapist, and then I had therapy, I had to have therapy, and I'm so
mm,
grateful for it. But I don't know, and I can't say if I would have gone. Maybe at this point, but not at the time when I was 20, 21, 22. I wouldn't have taken myself
mm,
there, because even though the knowledge was a little bit around, the experiences that
mm,
I had with health and practice at the time weren't nice. So I wouldn't sit there. And because I've been ignored, no one ever saw my vulnerability. Again, why would I go
mm.
and seek help whenever I kind of did seek help, but I never got the help that I wanted in school?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, isn't it? If you don't get the support, you start thinking it's normal. This is how I feel. This is how I feel, right? Like, it's like I just crack on with it and do my best, basically.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, so you obviously started your psychotherapy training, and then yeah, of course, you had to do therapy as part of it because you have to process your own stuff, which makes
Yes.
complete sense. When you start, working with other people and other patients. So what type of therapy did you have, and what kind of tools, techniques kind of helped you through what you were feeling?
That's a good question. So I am a transactional analyst. My
Hmm.
therapist, who I've been seeing for the last 9 years, she is also, but she's also integrative psychosym. So she's also many things. She's a very highly
Okay.
experienced psychotherapist. Been
Yeah.
doing this for 40 years. Um, so the best way to put it is I was highly defended, and that's when. So just to explain what that means, I know you know what that means, but what your audience understand what it means is that I was highly guarded. It was very
Mhm.
difficult for me to open up. It took a very long time for me to feel safe to open up, and it sounds weird because you think, oh, why wouldn't you feel safe to just talk to somebody sitting in a chair? But what one thing that, and there's also being a fast psychotherapist to clients, how I explain to clients is that when you're in therapy, you might be the biggest CEO, but when you get into
Mhm.
that room, you can become a child. And I don't necessarily
Yes.
mean like sometimes it actually does happen. People actually become a child, but I don't mean you start sucking your thumb. But without knowing, you
Mm,
start doing things that children do. Like maybe you start drawing. You're not looking at the therapist. Your legs are moving in a certain way like you did as a child. You retreat into a childlike state. And if you felt unsafe as a child, then you will feel unsafe in the therapy room until certain conditions are put in place for you to feel safe. And a lot
mhm,
of that is building
mhm,
trust. So it took about 2 years. That's a very long time. That's 80
mhm.
sessions before
Wow.
um, I opened up of any great length. So my
80
therapist,
sessions.
about
Wow.
80 sessions, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, And it's just, constant, I guess how easy for me to say how I do it with clients. Just containing that space, following the client, not going deeper than the client wants you to go. Um, um, and just being very, very careful in some of the interventions that you make. So, because sometimes you can
Mm,
see beyond what your client can see yet, and just having to bear that in mind that that person may not be ready to go there. A client might come in and
mm,
say, "Oh, I love my mum. Me and mum have got an amazing relationship," and you're like, "Not by what you're telling me." Then 2 years later, "Oh, my mum and I, man, is really complex because it took 2 years for them to work
mm,
out that love and relationship. Though it's loving, is very symbiotic, is very codependent, right? So within those 2 years is about sensitively just bringing them to their awareness. Oh, your mum was quite critical when you did something really good. Oh yeah, but she's always like that. And then one day you
mm,
say something similar. Oh, it sounds like you were really happy, and nobody was there for you. And it's like, yeah, nobody's there for me, even my mum. Whoa.
mm,
One minute, last year, they were highly defended. If you said anything about their mum, it was like, no, she's amazing, she's wonderful, you don't understand her. Now she's able to
mm,
recognize, wow, yeah, my mum wasn't there for me when I really needed her. It takes time. It takes, constantly kind of moving with the client. The client
mm,
might say, no, you're wrong. Say, okay, I heard that. Explain to me then from your side. So it's being patient, having what they call unconditional positive regard, just really being present with that person. And sometimes it's a feeling.
mm,
It's a potency. It can't always be articulated in words. It's how you show up. It's how you contain the space. It's your silences. It's your
mm,
eye contact.
mm,
It's also it's your presence. Now, my therapist carried presence, and one of the key things of my therapist to say that is she was down to earth. She's not black actually. She's white, and I came in wanting
mhm,
a black therapist. I thought because I created a service for that.
mm,
We can talk about it later. But I wanted a black therapist, and I met a black therapist, but she would to me was too clinical. She told me to take my shoes off, sit down, and she just looked at me, and I was just like, "What do I like? I've never done therapy. What do you want me to do?" And then my therapist, when I met her, she was idiosyncratic. She sat down, had her legs up, and she was like, "I'm white, you're black. Let's talk about it." And I was like, I loved her personality. Um,
yeah.
and also she reminded me of me. She has a personality. Her personality comes through in the
Mm,
therapy where the other therapist who was black, I felt had the typical kind of therapy, kind of like you sit in a chair and
mm,
hello, hi. And it's like, is that your personality or is that your persona as a therapist, right?
right, right.
And
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so
exactly.
my
It's
therapist
so true,
modeled
like
exactly.
yeah, like I've avoided. I still feel bad saying this. I have avoided South Asia therapists previously, and I shouldn't. I've become aware of that as well. But I think it's just my own projection of
Mm,
growing up and that sort of stuff as well. But I think it is about persona, and I actually went through maybe 3 or 4 therapists as well to try and find the right one, because it was really difficult. I think because like you said, it's different types of therapy. I realized that I couldn't just sit and speak to someone who wasn't responsive towards me, so like a CBT type of therapy kind of helped because it was a bit of more of a chat. But you need to connect, with your therapist because, and how do you know you're connecting? That's the thing. How do you know it's not right for you? Because you knew that you moved on to someone else.
So most people won't have our language, it's not they're not going to say the transfer it. So a lot of it is just subjective. That same therapist who I didn't think was
Mm,
right for me is a very well known, respected black stacker therapist, and everyone loves her. I just didn't connect with her.
mm,
So it's not even a personal thing
mm,
to that person. It's our stuff and her stuff just don't work. I've got
right,
clients that don't work well. They have session with me and they don't come back, so they find somebody else. And I think
right.
it's understanding that as a therapist, so those that are listening that may be therapists or practitioners, not everyone's for you. And it's the same thing as a client. You're only looking for that one person. Same way you're looking for that one partner, that one or two friends. You don't need everybody to like you. I don't need to click with every therapist. I need to click with that one therapist that will work for me. So it's how you feel. If you just don't feel good, you don't feel good. Now, if you're working with the therapist for a while and then you start to feel a certain way, then I will say, well, let's see, is this your what we call your patterns, your script coming out, your unconscious coming
Mm,
out, you want to run away, things are getting tough now. If it's the first session,
mm,
go with your gut instinct. But if you have developed a
yeah.
somewhat of a relationship, then it could be that it's just not working, or it could be you're withdrawing, you're running away, the stuff from the past is coming up, because
Mm,
the best thing in therapy is when you go through a rupture, when something happens, it
mm,
doesn't work out. It's so painful, but it can be so healing because it teaches you
mm,
another way of being. That when things go wrong, I can actually work it out. I don't have
Yeah.
to run away.
Yeah.
I don't have to feel this way. I don't have to feel that. It gives you another way of being. And I think a lot of people leave therapy at that juncture when it gets tougher. Therapy ain't always, it's not really meant to be easy. Therapy isn't always, oh, I go there,
Mm.
I feel good. It is that, oh my God, I've been hit by a truck. What is going on? There's been some therapy sessions I'm sure you've had. You go sleep.
Mm.
You're so tired. You're so emotionally drained that you've got to sleep
Shut
after.
down. You just shut down. Yeah, yeah. Or you're just like really knackered. You're just like, I just need to sleep, man. It's a safe space. 50 minutes, I can do what I want.
Honestly.
No, it's very true. It's very true. I'm so happy to hear that, you got the help that you needed, but also are now helping other people as well.
Mm.
Because I know that you're CEO of Frontline Therapy. And tell me what led you to create that type of business.
Yeah, so Frontline Therapist is an affordable, accessible, online, culturally sensitive counselling service that provides mental health therapy to, they now call it the global majority, don't like that term anyways, but anyways,
Mm.
Black and Asian and mixed heritage individuals and, and people from disadvantaged backgrounds all over the UK. And I'm very practical. I saw a need and I filled it. The reality is Black and Asian individuals and mixed heritage, people of colour, um, experience and report poor outcomes within the NHS.
Mm.
We thank the NHS. We,
Mm.
we are grateful, but it has its issues, and
Oh yeah.
essentially, there's there's the demand is higher than the supply. There's not enough
Mm.
workers to supply the need, so therefore, and the mainstream market, meaning the private therapy market, my prices as a private practitioner is expensive. Not everyone can afford 60, 70, 80 pounds per session, right? Not many
Mm.
people from
Mm.
our backgrounds can afford that
Yeah.
consistently over X period of time. So
Mm.
it was, and there isn't that many services that specifically look at our intersectionality and then provide
Sure.
therapy for that. And I guess the last thing is the power of choice. It's the same thing, you
Mm.
know. I Even if you don't want a South Asian therapist, if you don't want a black therapist, you at least have the choice to ask for one. And in a lot of
Mm.
spaces, you don't even have the choice. Like I didn't have a choice that I could have a female GP. I just
Mhm.
got given what I was always given. And then when I was asked, who do you want? It was the best thing ever because maybe I'm hoping that if I get a female GP, and she was lovely, she was sweet, she was kind. And it was like, finally, I
Mm.
had a choice. And it made going to the GP a little bit more bearable. And I think the power
Mm.
of choice is really important. And that's really what I wanted to give to our communities.
Yeah, and often we don't have that, do we? As well, I think, and I agree that intersectionality is really disregarded or not taken into consideration. I've certainly don't think it was really taken into regard when I was in therapy, like being a Indian woman who's gay as well, and like being able to process all of that stuff, is not easy. And I think that to be honest, I still struggle with it sometimes, right? Like it's relentless,
Mm.
and issues come up all the time, and it's finding that therapist that is able to help you through that, which I think is wonderful. It's definitely needed, and I think that helping people from those backgrounds as well is a beautiful thing. Are there any sort of particular patterns that you see with like um, sort of different types of mental illness? Is there something which reoccurs constantly with the group that you're giving therapy to?
Black and Asian. I guess there's different levels. So you've got what we'd
Mm.
call mild to moderate, which would be the anxiety, so anxiety related issues and
Mhm.
depression related issues. Then you've
Mhm.
obviously got what we call severe and enduring mental health issues, which will be from psychosis, um,
Sure.
schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, all of that.
Mm.
Um, then you also have personality disorder kind of, not right
Mm.
bang in the middle, but depending on how pervasive the symptoms and depending on what personality disorder it is as well. So
Mm. Mm.
with the people that come into our service, because it is a paid service, although very affordable, it's £30 per session, it means that
Mm.
most of the people will be mild to moderate
Sure.
because people with severe enduring mental health issues probably may not be in a situation where they can even afford £30 per
Yes.
session. So they
Yes.
would be in secondary services. They'll be receiving the help from mental health teams. Um, So we and if we do have people with psychotic illness, they're usually very functionable. So there's obviously
Mm,
people that will have that, but generally speaking, it would be the mild to moderate. So a bit like what IAPT deals with as well. Um, the
yeah,
IAPT only deals
yeah.
with mild to moderate, even though it's a free service. So yeah, we kind of deal with anxiety, depression, and of course a lot of racial stuff. And then we have people who don't necessarily have, they will say, look, I don't have much trauma in their mind. They just want to talk to somebody.
Mm,
And I think we have a lot of people that come for that. They come to just deal with the interpersonal difficulties that they're experiencing, not necessarily with deep trauma. And one of the things that I like to say is that when people come and they feel bad for coming, because they think that's just am I taking I said, look, the
yeah.
reality is, right, most people that have trauma will say that yes, we're happy. It's made us how who we are. But yeah, I could have done without some of the things I've gone through. Like, in all honesty, I could have done.
Mm,
You know, what you don't have to. It's not trauma Olympics. I think there is a lot of this trauma Olympics. Sometimes you feel like people are trying to up their trauma. It's like
mm,
if you've come from a two-parent household, you were loved, you weren't sexually abused. That's what we want. We want more stable people in the world. We want more secure attachment. It's not.
absolutely,
You shouldn't be apologizing for your
absolutely.
secure attachment, right? There's still issues that you might need to deal with, but what they call the pennies that made you, the pennies are flat. They're not
Mm,
bent. Where some of us have all these
mhm,
different bent pennies with some flat pennies, and it's on a rocky foundation. The world would be a better place if more of us had secure relationships, honestly, because people that are hurt when they were childhood are now hurting people who were quite secure, and then you're creating all of this stuff. So I have a segment of the population that would probably don't have a lot of traumatic childhood experiences. But then what we do
mm.
know is that you could have a very strong foundation, but life when you get an adulting is hard. You could have a secure, you could be
It's hard.
strong, you could have an amazing, and then somebody dies in your family one after another. You get fired from your
Mm,
job because you go through a
mm,
complaint. Imagine one person going through that that will rock anybody, irrespective if you
mm,
haven't got trauma, and then that could become where your issues, and you get a lot of that they didn't have issues when they were children. Their issues started when they're an
yeah,
adult. But overall, it's the general kind of life, relationship issues, trauma issues, racial trauma issues, and then I just want to come
mm.
to therapy because I know it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like we all need someone to talk our stuff through, right? As well, it's like you said, it's like it doesn't necessarily start from childhood. It also can start from adulthood, like you said, like and become more resilient to these changes, which I think is super important. It's amazing that the work you're doing and to be so affordable, I think is so key as well. Because like it is, if you go through private, it's very expensive, isn't it? Even go up to 100, sometimes for a session. And like you said, the NHS is overloaded. So yeah, it's amazing. Um, I know that I want to say congratulations on your TEDx talk that you did recently at King's College.
Mm.
Amazing. You're just like smashing it and you're just going forwards and like nothing's stopping you, man. It's so inspirational. Tell me about your TEDx talk. What was it that you did? What is it that you kind of your subject that you tackled?
So my subject was essentially how to disrupt the absence of black women leaders at the top of corporate Britain. How to
Mm,
disrupt that. There's a lack of us. There's a lack of um, black women at the top of all sectors of society. Um,
mm,
how do we disrupt that? How do we change the status quo? How do we do that? Because I'm very much about solutions. I identify the
mhm.
problem. The problems have existed for a long time. They're not, unfortunately, they're probably not going anywhere soon. So how can we begin to disrupt that? So as I'm very practical, the talk was highly focused on what we can do as black people, and but I cannot forget or nor neglect the accountability that needs to be placed on these employers, especially when the majority of them
Absolutely.
are white men. So, but that's my balance. Some people are different. Some people might spend more time focusing on the employers and a bit on us, but because of my worldview, I'm very much of if you block me, then I'm going to circumvent that I don't. And then maybe, and this is where maybe because I experienced legitimate victimhood. I said I experienced being like legitimately
Mm,
oppressed. by people, by adults, by my peers, that when I emancipated in year 8, I said never again. Never, whether it's
Mm,
psychologically, though it took a long time, it took another 10, 15 years, whole process. I don't want to ever
mhm,
feel like a victim, meaning that if you are oppressing me, I have to stand up for myself. I have to bulldoze through,
mhm,
because it's more or less
mhm.
basically you're trying to kill me, you know. That
Yeah.
that's when somebody's got their leg on your neck, that's where you
Mhm,
breathe. If they pressure it any longer, you will die. And that's kind of
mhm,
essentially how I kind of feel in terms of the space that I'm in. That a lot of black women are wounded. They're wounded by life, and they're
mm,
wounded in the workplace. And the way I look at things, and I guess that's my strength, that I come in with the. I didn't have a lot of the issues that a lot of black women face in their career. I could have gone up right to the top, but I
mhm,
chose not to because I just didn't think it was worth the money, anyways. But my
mhm,
career was quite smooth. I was bullied for 1 year. That was in social work. That was when I was doing teaching. But
mhm,
overall, I haven't faced direct racial discrimination from white people. Actually, interesting enough, it's actually been from Asians, and then I wouldn't say direct racism, but there's been the
mhm,
two people that I mentioned. It was actually in South Asian doctor, and it was a South Asian um, team leader who bullied me. So that's why I say that my experience has been quite different. It's been a lot of intercultural stuff, or
mm.
inter-ethnic cultural stuff, which, to be
Indians are
honest,
racist, man. Indians are really racist. You know, like we're racist. Everyone's racist to each other, racist to everyone else. And I hate to say that, but South Asians are the racists, man. Like, and
yeah.
there is discrimination. You know, and what angers me so much is that they think diversity is there because some Indian men are CEOs of these tech companies, which is absolute rubbish because that's not diversity to me. You know, because there
Mm,
is Indian male privilege as well, you know,
mm,
and we don't recognize that too. So that's not tick box in my eyes.
mm.
You know, I'm
That's
sorry to
my
hear that
point.
you were bullied by them.
But this is where why I'm very practical, because these are the conversations people don't have. Because what I was saying to people is that when they say BAME, for example, right, that the most successful BAME people are Indian men. So when they actually are
Mm,
saying that, oh, we have diversity, it usually is the Indian men that are on there, right? Which is amazing.
mm,
But it's not diversity across the board. There's not black women, other
yeah,
Indian women. There's not
mm,
Pakistani women.
mm,
It's really Indian men, and maybe that one odd
mhm,
Chinese person that could be there, and or an Arabic person, and that literally is what they're saying is diverse, and that's why. I say, this is my view. My view is every group of people should focus on themselves, not against each other. But if we all focus on ourselves, there'll be more highlights. Because if we focus on BAME, what's happened in the last 15 years that term has gone, is that only one part of BAME has done well overall.
yeah, absolutely,
So when
absolutely,
companies say
absolutely.
that, they're actually only talking about potentially not all, but majority really Indian men. Let's just be real. That's just what it is. Majority of the
Yeah,
doctors after white people in NHS are Indian. The majority of the businesses after is that, let's call it what it is. And people just don't want to talk about that. So we hide under these terminologies. Everyone's scared of offending each other. Um, I don't think black people and Asian people talk enough about these issues. We come together against white people, but we don't talk about the things that we have against each other. There's so many things.
absolutely.
So it ends up, that's probably why the movement, that's why I don't even like doing talking about EDI anyways, but that's why EDI, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really do anything other than tick a box, because internally there's issues and no one wants to talk about them. No one wants to be real about that. Everyone just wants to be seen to be saying, yeah, we're diverse and inclusive. But what does that mean? Within the cultural groups, there are issues. Within the group itself, within black people, within within Indians, there are issues. So
We don't want to
I'm
talk
there.
about
I
it though,
want
do
to
we?
know.
You're right. We don't want to talk. We don't want to. We're too scared. We're too avoidant to talk about this stuff. But I'm so glad you agree because I don't say it's loud very often either. But it really does piss me off that I see that, and that's okay. It's diversity's done as well. It's very true, and I think that really needs change. And I think, like you said, like you might just put in an unconscious bias training or EDI training, but it's not going deep enough. It's not going deep enough into like the issues that we actually have, and unless we're together, we work together to solve it, it's not going to change, you know?
Exactly.
It's just not going to change. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, oof. Getting angry now.
Yeah, let me,
um,
let me just give an example, because I was talking to a friend who's doing therapy, And I was saying to her, one of the things that I experienced in my therapy journey is the supervisor told me to change my voice. So it's too harsh. So I had to speak like this, you know? And I said to my friend that it's that's a very subtle thing because you know, it's not that every single black person we have a deeper voice, but we have a different inflection. Same with Asians. Like I can sometimes tell, not all, an Asian person on the phone. I can tell a black person on the phone. Not all the time. Depends on where you live, where you grew up, right? But
Yeah.
I can actually
Yeah.
tell when I'm talking to a black person. I can just tell by their tonality. Um, and so when I said to her that what you, because she's getting some feedback about her voice, I said, look, it's very difficult to say. I said, the way I look at things, I say it's everything and. So it could be a microaggression, as in an unknowing kind of, view of how you should sound, or it could be your voice is a certain way, because you do have to be aware of how you come across to the client. And I said, but it's all of those things. I said, there is a therapy sound. Therapy was created predominantly by white men, but majority of therapy is white women, and a lot of white middle
Mm,
class women have soft voices. That's just call it what it is. They have
mm,
softer toning voices.
mm,
So if
mm,
majority of the people talk a certain way, and then you come in, I come in from a Hackney, East London kind of swag. When I'm being told change your voice, it isn't just because I'm black. It's also because I come from a particular area. I'm a working class girl from an estate. This is how we talk. I didn't grow up talking like this. I just didn't grow up. So but we don't want to be real. What you would hear in therapy now would be, oh, I'm open to a discussion about. No, shut up. Like, let's just talk about it. Majority of people sound like this. So you're going to assume in therapy, even how I'm speaking now, some white people might think, oh, oh, because that's how they talk. So let's just be honest about it. I'm not offended because I can't apologize for how I speak unless I go to an elocution teacher.
why should you ever have to, right? Like, it's you shouldn't
Exactly.
ever have to do that. You shouldn't
Exactly.
ever have
But
to hide yourself, and here you are.
exactly.
Yeah,
So we should talk about that
totally.
and not just be offended by the word, because the word, what I'm trying to say is that if I told a white person that, I'm not even trying to accuse you. I'm saying I understand that you are in an environment the same way when I meet black people who talk very posh. I don't think they're less black, but I know they probably were brought up they were brought up either in private school or in a certain area, or that random Hackney person that got to go to grammar school. Majority of people that come from a certain area
Mm,
talk a certain way. It's just part of the way it is. So when somebody talks very differently, I then need to be aware of the bias that I might be carrying. So when I now give a feedback, I've got to ask myself, is it because I'm assuming every therapist should talk like this? Or am
mm,
I saying I think you should, sound a little bit more softer in just a general sense? And I think we don't want to have these
mm,
conversations because they're too hard. And we have to look internally within ourselves, both black, both white, both everybody. And we live in such an
mm,
age that everyone's trying to point the fingers, and we're not really trying to
mm.
learn, we're trying to perform.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's so funny you said about the way we talk. So, one of my childhood friends, she grew up in Wembley. I grew up in Harrow, and we grew up. We're in our forties now. And she's the MD of Accenture, and so she's got mixed race kids. Her husband's white, Scottish. But when we come together and we speak, we can't help but to go back to our roots and how we speak. And their children don't even understand what we're saying. They have no idea. They're like, "What is wrong with you?" They're saying "fools," they're saying "in it," they're saying this, saying that, and they just don't get it. And it's so funny. And you just think, why? But we've hidden that part of us almost. Do you know what I mean? It's like we've almost like we don't. It doesn't come out anymore like it should. We should be ourselves. We have to speak how we want to speak without judgment. You know. So it's true. It's true. So tell me about your TEDx and what's the hopes and dreams for you and you, because you've got another business. It's not
Yeah.
just frontline therapists, doing something with black women leaders as well. So tell me more about that.
So her next is essentially addressing the intersectionality gap. It's closing the leadership gap for black women and
Mm,
providing, I guess, an online e-learning platform via membership, both individual and corporate, to upskill black women to get to the next level
mhm,
in their career,
mhm.
and then to hold
Yes.
corporations accountable by how psychologically safe are your
Mhm,
companies for these said black women. It's all well and good, paying for the training so they can go up, but is it safe? Because one of the things that research, as I'm doing my doctorate, demonstrates is that when women and when black women, when Asian women, when women of color go into these positions, they are isolated.
Mhm.
They have a heavy burden because sometimes they feel like they've got to carry the whole black banner, the old Asian banner, like they're doing it for everyone. And sometimes they are. Sometimes it really is. You are
Yeah.
doing it for everyone. And that's a lot of pressure. And also the personal
Mm,
cost. You know, we talk about resilience, but one of the things that research is also showing that resilience is no longer seen as a badge of honor. It's actually battle
mm.
scars. I had to be
Yes,
resilient at such great
yes.
adversity. The cost of my resilience. What is the cost of being resilient? I don't think we ask that enough. What is the personal cost to get to such a position? You know, did I have to lose to be the MD? What did I have to lose to be the CEO?
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and I think in my programs, my training, they come at the intersectionality and really attune to the mental health needs. So yes, you're going to gain the
mm,
skills, the personal branding, you know, all of the skills you need to be a
mm,
top executive, but you're going to be
mm,
attuned to your mental well-being because that is
mhm. Love
absolutely
that.
essential. Um, because I don't think, me personally, you can talk to women, black women, Asian women, but in this case, black women, without understanding their mental health needs, because what we have to go through to, and with me, like I said, I have fun now. I don't see racism in everything, but I know the cost that some women
Mhm,
especially have had to go through to get to the top. You know, I left that, and that's why I did business, because I did not want, I can't play politics, as you can see. I say it how it is. I didn't
mm,
learn how to play politics, so when I was being pushed into leadership, I said no, I can't, I'm too honest. And that was just my point of
mhm,
view. Not that I felt that people would be honest, but I just knew everything was showing my face, and I just know I'll piss people off. So I just felt, you know what, I'm not going down that route. So imagine those that do go down that route because they believe, you know, one, they want economic advancement. You ain't more money. Let's not lie. Going up is
mhm,
not just because I want to
mhm,
help people. I want more money. I want more
mhm,
responsibility, and also I
mhm,
want greater impact, and I want to be a role model. But the cost of doing that is unfair, and my programs and all the stuff, the training that I do, shows the understanding. Now, not everyone needs it. There's some black people like myself. I can go to a general leadership program and get what I need, and I recognize that. So I want people to also hear that you don't have to go to a program just for black people. There are brilliant programs out there that you
mm,
can go, but for black people they need
mhm,
to be seen. They need to be
mhm,
validated. That's what my program does for them. It validates them. It validates their issues. Not every black person is the same. We are all different. We all think different. We're not a homogenous group. But I recognize that. And within that, I understand our unique intersectionality, that we're both visible and invisible at the same time. And it's a very, very weird autonomy. You know, we're visible for scrutiny, we're visible when things go wrong,
mhm,
but we're invisible for promotions. So
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
weird
yeah,
experience, it's a weird phenomena, and only usually black or Asian or people of color really understand the dichotomy. And I think programs that don't tailor to that loses a lot of people, and can
mm,
disengages a lot of people who need to know and feel. Similar to having the choice to choose a black therapist or an Asian therapist, it's a choice. You ain't got to
mm.
access it. You can go
Yes.
to another. So that's what my hair next is all about. It's essentially, what is your next destination? I want to support you in your next destination as a leader, in your next destination as a businesswoman.
Such a wonderful business to have as well, and it's so I feel empowered just speaking to you, to be fair, and I want to do better already. So it's such a fantastic business. And if anyone wants to get in touch with you about your businesses, about the therapist, about like her next, how could they contact you?
Oh, good question. So, go on NGOZICADMUS, Ngozi Cadmus, on LinkedIn or Instagram, and then via that you can go via email, because my email, you know, your email so long, it's just easy to say. The
Yeah.
easiest known is just go to LinkedIn or Instagram, and then from there follow the options to make contact with my team, and then we can get
I
in
love that.
contact. Yeah, because sometimes I'm like, whenever, look, I'm terrible by email, so I always say I'll take your email because I will tell you the email wrong.
Yeah,
So let me take your email because my emails are easy. So just find me my name. No one's got my name. I'm unique. No one's got my name in the world. Ngozi Cadmus, so Ngozicadmus. Follow me, and we can. My team can get back to you. We can see how we work together.
that's brilliant. I love that. And I always like to finish off on this question is like, how do you find the power within you to kind of manage your mental health now and for the future? So what is it that you're gonna continue doing to help yourself, especially?
For me, God. So my prayer life is very important. Knowing that
Beautiful.
there's something bigger than myself, and also that I've got
Faith,
a
so
purpose.
important.
So yeah, my faith is very
Yes.
important. Something that got a purpose, and that's probably the biggest thing that's kept me going. You know, humans will always fail you. My mum, I love her. She'll fail me. I'll fail her. My husband will fail like, but God has never failed me. So that's important for me. And
Mm,
therapy and supportive friends that will gas you. You know,
mm,
I'm a
mm.
gasser. Like, call me, I will make you feel like you're the best thing ever. I'm like, you can do it, girl. And then I'll just gas you. And then after you come to reality, well, maybe not, but you need to feel like you could. Like, I feel like every person needs to feel like they're the best thing since sliced bread. Like when you dressed up, I'll be like, you look what? You look hot, girl. So damn yes. Turn around. Even you're like, oh yeah, babe, that dress ain't looking good. But for that one moment, it's like that's. I think a lot of people don't actually have that. People don't actually have that, and that's me. I like to
True.
gas people because that's a delusion, but you deserve to be praised in that moment because not everyone has it. Most of the time, I'm at home doing my own thing. I'm in my own world and my
Mm,
own thoughts. There's now someone go, girl, I'm so happy. Like when you said to me, I love what you're doing. It's like, oh yeah, thank you. You're just doing it. I'm just living. I'm not sitting there going, oh
mm,
yeah, I'm doing that. You're just living life. Um,
absolutely.
so I think it's important to have even if it's just one or two people that can just gas you, call them and tell me I'm the best thing since I've read. And then later on, reflect and think and take accountability on whatever you got to do. But I think, obviously faith, therapy, and having solid relationships. So if anyone's listening who hasn't got that, kind of a lot of people do feel quite alone, you know, go on meetups, go in events. Like I go to events on my own. I went to Dubai by myself for a business event.
Mm,
I've met some incredible people there.
mm,
I've met Portugal. I met so uh, I got a lot of friends because I do a lot of things on my own. I don't wait for anybody. So anyone
no.
listening, my biggest scary, yep, very scary. If you need therapy to get over your social anxiety, then do that. Go out on your own and just take a chance and meet people and connect and do things that you like and then meet people that you have shared interest with. And I think that would really help your audience as well, especially if you're going through
Yeah.
anxiety or depression.
Absolutely. There is, and that reminds me to be more social and network more. I did that before COVID, but afterwards I need to get out and do more of that. But Ngozi, thank you for such inspiring, thought-provoking, funny as well. It made me laugh so much today as our conversation. It's been like just so wonderful to speak to you. I can't wait for this episode to go live. I really can't. It's just such a pleasure to speak to you, and
Thank
thank
you.
you for like just being so open.
No, thank
It's
you
been
so
brilliant. Thank you.